Devils podcast brought to you by talkthedevils.co.uk, your number one independent Manchester United podcast. This is our Aston Villa preview, and I'm joined, as always, every Friday evening by Mr. Phil Marsh and Lee Lawrence, former Manchester United players. We're going to deep dive into all things Manchester United in terms of Aston Villa this weekend. Obviously, deep dive into Ronaldo's interview and everything else in the news with regards to Manchester United. But first of all, lads, I haven't spoken to you in a week. Obviously, look, Phil, you're at the match this past week. How's the form? How are you keeping?
Yeah, all good, thank you, mate. Obviously, evening to everyone who's watching tonight. It was good to get back to Old Trafford, watch a game. Obviously, a good win in the end. Obviously, it was a very good performance overall. I think Aston Villa were probably the better team, but no, it was good to be back, and yeah, everything's good from my end, so no complaints.
Fantastic to hear, and it's always good to hear you're back in Old Trafford as well. There's no place like home, so absolutely delighted to see that you're back there on Monday night, and fingers crossed. I'm hoping to be in Madrid in a couple of weeks' time for the Champions League. So, please God, 90%. But Lee, how's the form? How are you keeping?
Oh, good, mate. Oh, good. Thank you very much. Busy week as usual with work. Same old with United, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a bit. I'll try not to be so depressive, but it's hard with our form at the moment. So let's just see how this one goes. We'll try and try not to slit our wrists after the end of it.
I just lost you there for 2 seconds. I don't know if that was my internet or did you lose Lee there? Phil?
No, he was all right. I'm man.
I think it's just my side. It must be my end. I'm just going to come to a couple of comments here as well, guys. I'm just going to come to Reese's comment here. Reese says, watching on TV, but got my phone for the live chat. Evening, lads. Hope you are well. Hashtag up the Reds. Hashtag glory Man United. Up the heavy metal relentless gang pressing Reds. Absolutely. So, Reese, I'm loving your positivity here this Friday. I'm going to manifest your energy here today. And also joined by Wayne as well in the comments as well. Wayne says, evening, gents. Hope you're well. So I suppose, guys, look, it's been a crazy week as Manchester United fans, as it always is, in terms of reports, in terms of performances in games, in terms of rumors, all this type of stuff. It's kind of been ramping up in this kind of last 7 days since we last spoke on the podcast. But Phil, obviously you were at Old Trafford this past Monday. For the FA Cup fixture, obviously returning home for the first time in quite some time. In terms of the game itself, in terms of the overall performance, being there in the stadium, though, rather than watch on the television, what do you take from Monday's game, the FA Cup, and obviously your first time seeing Manchester United play under Ralph Rangnick?
I mean, it was a difficult game for us. I think, again, it wasn't an ideal performance, and it wasn't probably a complete performance that we're all looking for as United fans. I think there was little glimpses of play which was quite good, but again it was few and far between. I think Aston Villa was far the better team on the night, and they controlled a lot of the big moments in the game. I think it was obviously an early goal from McTominay, which was a fantastic ball from Fred. I was sat directly behind that, and it was an absolute peach of a cross. That's exactly what you want as a centre forward or as a midfielder making runs into the box. That kind of service is exactly what you want to be getting from your midfielders and your wide men. But obviously after that, I was expecting us to sort of kick on and maybe take a little bit of confidence from that. But obviously it didn't really happen, and obviously Villa came into the game a little bit more. I thought Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings were a handful all night. He looked, a threat. I thought Buendia as well was linking up really well with them, and some of the play that they was doing was really good to watch, and that's obviously what we want to be doing as well. I just think that at the moment, the players look like they've obviously got a lot of things on the mind. The confidence isn't there. I think we're still sort of trying to find our feet in regards to this new system and personnel. So yeah, it was a frustrating night overall. The atmosphere was really good. Stevie G took a hammering, which was good to see. But yeah, I think, you know, the performance wasn't great, but obviously the result was a great result, because obviously we want to try and progress as far as we can in the FA Cup, because for me, I think that's realistically our best chance of winning a cup this year. So yeah, obviously lots still to work on, and you know, not very many positives to come out of the game, apart from, I mean, we touched on it just before the podcast came live, and we was on about Alanga's impact when he came on. I think, you know, he was probably, you know, the biggest positive for me as a fan watching. When he came on, he looked really lively. He won his headers. He was, you know, getting at defenders. He got a few, you know, balls in, and was geeing the crowd up. And I think that's just what you want to see as a supporter. You know, somebody who's playing with confidence and expressing themselves and trying to, you know, get the crowd going and, you know, getting you on the edge of the seat. And I think he did that in the short spell he was on the game, in the pitch. So yeah, fair play to him. And if I was Ralph, I mean, I would be certainly looking at, you know, giving him an opportunity in the next weeks, and maybe, you know, giving Rashford a bit of a rest, because I think he looks as though he's, you know, really shot of confidence and sort of lacking that you know, mentality and desire that, you know, you need to have as a Man United player. Whether there's something going on outside of football, you know, nobody knows, but there's definitely something not right with him at this moment in time, and I'm hoping if he does take a little break out, and he can come back, you know, refreshed and you know, with the sort of point to prove, which we know how good of a player is on his day. So yeah, hopefully, you know, he can sort out whatever's going on and come back into the team, you know, the old Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, I spoke to Marcus about this the other night on our Wednesday podcast, and undoubtedly Marcus Rashford has all the qualities to be a Manchester United player, a Manchester United attacker, and has, you know, he's one of the most like influential players probably in the last couple of seasons for Man United. Even times when he was struggling through injury, he was still scoring goals and getting assists. So for me at the moment, it's kind of puzzling to see Marcus being this run of form, because even when he had them injuries, he was so good. For me, I kind of feel sorry for him in a way, because obviously, like, because of what he does outside of football, you know, he gets berated a lot. And I think Marcus needs to kind of, it's almost like he needs to maybe reevaluate his game and maybe take some time out mentally, because he's had so much on his plate in terms of on the pitch with injuries, so recovering from injury, and then also his stuff outside the pitch. You know, I think maybe mentally a few weeks out may actually do him the world of good to really recharge the batteries. Like, you know, maybe watch a bit of footage of what you're doing wrong. Maybe talk to your senior. Well, I know we're going to touch on that minute in terms of lack of senior players we have in the squad, but maybe talk to a Cristiano. Cristiano, when he was at a young age at Man United, at times, Phil, you'll notice, and being in the dressing room, being on the training pitch, there was times when Cristiano had levels of inconsistency, and he had to iron out some parts of his game, and the likes of Roy Keane and Paul Scholes, Giggsy, players like that really, you know, helped him in that way. Maybe does he go to a Cristiano and say, like, look, what do you think I should do? Like, is there something maybe in my training, maybe my diet? Is like, it could be something simple like that can maybe help him shape his game. And like we said this start of the season, maybe he does need to confide in a player like that. Now, obviously, a professional footballer, both of you former professional footballers, like, you'll know maybe sometimes if you have that quality yourself, you'd probably like to do it yourself. But when you have a player like Ronaldo there, maybe it's worthwhile maybe confiding in that player. Same way like Cristiano would have took advice off Roy Keane back in the day. So I think maybe Rashford maybe needs to do that. Maybe he needs to go have a chat with the manager, have a chat with Ralph, you know, in terms of maybe Ralph can maybe try to influence his game as well. But I think maybe some time out of the team could do him the world of good, and then he can come back and he can really challenge for his place again. Because when he came back in the first like week or 2 weeks, and he was back, like the Leicester game, you know, the Atalanta game as well, which I was at in the Champions League, he was bright. He was taking players on. He scored goals, and then since Solskjaer has been sacked ultimately, since if you actually look at that timeline, Rashford's form has kind of dipped as well. Now, I'm not putting two and two together and saying Ollie Even is the reason, you know, Rashford's out of form. But if you look at that time scale, that's when this form has dipped. So I think you have to look at Marcus and say, like, I think maybe some reevaluation, maybe some self-conversations, but also maybe some open conversations he needs to have with the coaching staff, with the, likes of Ronaldo, maybe the likes of Bruno, players like that who are also experienced that can try to guide him. And like I know, look, he's not a young player like the way Mason is, but he's still a young-ish player, like 23, 24. He's still not fully developed yet. So I think Marcus may need some reevaluation in his game. I'm just going to come to a couple of interesting comments now, if I can scroll back up here. Reese says, Elanga was great. Rashford, I'm worried. I don't know what can be done to help him. I had another comment here. Scroll back up. I want to bring this to Lee in terms of the game. Reese says here, the game for me in a nutshell highlighted the fact that the team's lack of work and hunger. Villa wanted it more, but United had that killer instinct. We need to be more direct and aggressive in games. And then he follows on to say that the more aggressive we are in transition when pressing teams will allow us to be more clinical, and we will need to improve on and off the ball. Ralph can only do so much. The players need to work. Lee, obviously, look, Ralph's kind of time at Man United has been very short, but hasn't been ideal with the likes of COVID and stuff like that. Carrington being closed, and we can talk about systems, and we can talk about kind of the way we've been playing and the style of football that's been displayed kind of week in, week out. For you, when you look at sometimes the lack of aggression, the lack of press, the lack of, I suppose, what a Manchester United player is expected in terms of energy, pressing, and just trying your hardest for 90 minutes. What's missing at this moment in time? Is it a lack of personality that we have in the team?
First of all, let's start with a positive, because, like I said, the last couple of weeks, more or less all through the podcast, we've been negative. So since Ralph's come in, a little start, I think we've conceded 4 goals in 7 games, which isn't too bad. It looks like he's steadied the ship with, conceding goals, but quite a few of the times we've been very lucky with, again, hitting crossbars and defensive mistakes. But looks like he's steadied the ship a little with conceding goals. I was having a little think about this earlier on, about what is actually going wrong. You watch the highlights back of the Villa game, and like you said, this pressing game, it's just not happening whatsoever. And the conclusion I can only come up with myself is, I know when I was playing, you used to like playing with a consistent 11. So if you was all playing together week in, week out, and the team formation was consistent, the guys, so I was a left back. So if I was playing with, say, Ben Collett on the left wing, more often than not, you form a relationship. You know when to go, when to not, when to cover back round. At the moment in time, I feel like as a football club, especially the starting 11, there's no identity. I think when we did the podcast with Marcus, which was a great listen, I listened all the way through with that, and I think he was right with what he was saying. At the moment, Ollie's tried to bring the identity back to Man United, but if we're not starting the same 11 and we're not starting the same formation week in, week out, there's no structure being put in place. The players are forming that relationship with the players next to them. Like Phil will tell you, if you're playing a 4-4-2 and you've got a strike partner, Phil, you form a relationship, and if that strike partner is being changed week in, week out, or the formation is being changed and you're up there on your own, the lads look confused. But I think this is part of the problem, that we need to get Ralph's come in, and we're supposed to play in this 4-2-2 system with the gegenpress. It's not worked out. Well, it doesn't look like it's certainly going to work out for me. But sooner rather than later, we're going to have to form them bonds and get an identity of what formation of the majority of the games we're going to play, and get back to the Man United way before we start doing anything. I watched the Villa game, and going back on Marcus, he looked confused. It looked like he was overthinking how he should play instead of just playing football. Football in itself is the most simple game in the world. We've played it from being kids. He's played it all his life. You're playing with enjoyment in football and knowing what you're doing. It flows. It looked to me as though he was overthinking. Should I go? Should I not go? Should I take this guy on? Should I come back? At the moment, I just feel like the confidence in the team, it's not there. They don't look like they know what to do and when to do it. For me, that's going to change sooner rather than later.
Do you maybe think, with this confidence issue, do you maybe think it's a case of, look, it's a downturn in results, and maybe these players don't feel as free as maybe they would have been, let's say, 18 months ago when we were all calling them the most likable Manchester United team because of the confidence they play with, and they were forward thinking mostly at times. Is the confidence issue? Is this, like I said, a mental thing where like Marcus is confused in what he's doing? Because what Marcus Rashford really is as a left sided forward is he beat the first man. He cut in that right foot and you get off an early shot, or you put in an early ball. We're not seeing that now. So is the case that it is a confidence thing with Marcus, and maybe, as you said, it's kind of maybe more time to integrate and understand his role more, or do you think maybe, it's just like every young player, it's just a time where they go through that kind of period of inconsistency?
I think there's many factors with the whole squad. That being, like I said, what you just mentioned there being one of them, and obviously having different managers come in with different philosophies and different way, how they want you to play. I definitely don't think it helps with Marcus that he's got the I wouldn't say burden, but obviously off the field, when you're just concentrating on being a footballer and that's your main focus on life is being a footballer. If you've had a bad game, you go and reevaluate your game, and the most important part that week is how can he improve? With all these extra stuff, what he's doing, helping the kids, which is, don't get me wrong, absolutely fantastic what he does for the kids and feeding the kids what aren't privileged just to get a meal. I totally admire him for doing it, but it's got to be a disadvantage where if the other guys who's playing aren't playing ever so well, their main focus after training is how can I do better next time. He's not getting that downtime really to focus on that. He's focusing more on, right, straight after training or straight after a match, I'm on the phone to here, I need to sort this out, I need to sort that out. So I can definitely see how it's becoming a bit of a burden on his football. I'm a big supporter of what he's doing. Like I say, I just hope he can get back to the Marcus Rashford we know, who plays with a smile on his face and on his days an absolute world beater. He's carried us many a game over the last couple of seasons when we didn't have a striker. He was our best, our best striker, our best player for a number of years.
Last year, him and Bruno linked up, Lee. Like last year between himself and Bruno, and two of them, like Rashford had 20 goals and 17 assists last year through injury. We imagined after this surgery that he'd be even better this year, but it seems like it must be mental fatigue, physical fatigue, as you said. Like there's so many things that are going wrong for him, but you've seen the heights he can reach, and it's like we've seen this happen to Ali at Tottenham too. In terms of he was so good for England, so good for Spurs, and then he's had that bit of dip. I think that Rashford's situation might be slightly different because Rashford's hit them numbers more consistently than what Dele has done.
I think your prime example is Fernando Torres, isn't it? When he left Liverpool to go to Chelsea, and that was the same. He was absolute a world beater at Liverpool, and he just took a massive dip in form when he went to Chelsea. I think with Rashford, he's got the two. I mean, what two centre forwards at a club would you want? Like you touched on what you mentioned earlier, to give you advice and to get you back on track than Edison Cavani and Cristiano Ronaldo. He's going to probably have to lean on them a little now. And take advantage of their experience and their knowledge. And if he does, and he focuses a little bit more on his football, I've got no doubt that he'll come back and be one of our main players. And I'd be gutted if he went. I'd be absolutely gutted because the potential he's got on his day is fantastic. So going back to your original point of does he need to lean on the senior players in the squad? 100%. I think every young player should do that, but especially if you're low on confidence and low on form. Just look at Cavani. I think I've read a stat today, something like he's the second most hardworking centre forward in the Premier League at 30. What old is he? 34, 35?
34, yeah.
You know what I mean? That speaks volumes for me. It's sometimes it's what you do off the ball, not just on the ball too. And sadly, there's too many players for us at the moment doing jack all off the ball, which is for me has got massively got to change, to be honest.
Yeah, it does have to change. I think the work rate and desire most definitely has to change. And I see a comment here that I want to come to. Wayne has a comment here. I want to bring this to Phil because you're at the game on Monday. And Wayne says here, interesting that Ralph Ragnick said that we need 3 midfielders to control games. Pretty damning, even if we all agree that he's tried to get by with 2 so far. Just going to bring that to you, Phil, because obviously Ralph in the last 20 minutes of the game brought on Donny van de Beek and changed to a diamond. Ultimately, he went to the two split forwards. Obviously, Bruno kind of in the false kind of 9 position, but he had Matic, Fred, Van de Beek, Bruno, and then it was like was it Cavani and then Elanga or Rashford then at that point. But he changed to a diamond shape. Obviously, if Ralph is saying we need 3 midfielders to control the game, and maybe with obviously McTominay being out now this week, could Ralph maybe revert to this diamond to get, per se, more control? And maybe, like, obviously, when you have the 2 strikers up top, could Ralph maybe look at that diamond formation, as Ollie did last season as well, to maybe get more control of games against these teams where they're high energy in midfield, such as, obviously, I know McGinn is out tomorrow, but, like, we've been playing against, like, the Douglas Luiz and Jacob Ramsey, who did have good spells in midfield, but when we changed that diamond, we seem to kind of control it a bit more. Do you maybe think that's something away at Villa Park tomorrow that we can utilise, and maybe going forward as well when we lack possession of the ball in games?
I think you'll have to. Obviously, if McTominay's out and going off the game the other day when I was there, I think, Aston Villa, dominated the midfield battle for me. I think, them players you've just mentioned were sort of on the front foot and sort of winning all the second balls. And I just feel as though when we do play the 4-2-2-2, the gaps are too big and there's too much space, especially if you're playing against good players. Obviously, you can get away with it some weeks against some of the teams you'll play. But, when you're playing against a good team who's got, quality midfielders in there who you can do everything in terms of, win the ball back, work, and they're good on the ball, and they can play balls into the front, then I think, obviously, it's going to be difficult because the gaps and the spaces are too big, and it's not a sort of dig at Fred or McTominay or anyone who's in there. I just feel as though because there's so much space, it's impossible really for a midfielder to cover all that ground. So yeah, I think that could be something that we look at potentially in the next couple of games with obviously people missing. But not only that, I just feel as though I think it'd be our sort of in our own interest really to sort of give us a better chance of getting in the game and being able to have a bit more control in the middle of the park, which inevitably is where games are won and lost. I think, if you control in the midfield and you dominate in possession and you've got more of the ball and you're closer to people in terms of being able to, close them down and stop them from playing forward, then I think that's probably going to be the best sort of tactics for us moving forward, especially with, the games we've got coming up now, because we need to obviously start picking up more points in the league. Otherwise, we're going to be sort of too far away from the likes of all the other teams who are challenging for the top 4. And then obviously when the games start to come thick and fast, and they're obviously a lot harder than the ones that we've had recently, we are going to struggle because the better teams will no doubt pick us off and have more quality in the final third to punish us, where we've got lucky really in the last couple of games I've seen with a lot of chances. Obviously Villa the other day, 2 goals disallowed, another couple of opportunities where a better ball into the box or a bit more quality on the finish, and we would have been probably in trouble. So yeah, interesting, but I feel as though that's probably the best way to go in the next couple of games and just see how it goes, because as I said, I think there's too much space when there's that 4-2-2 formation.
Yeah, I think it's probably the best option now at the moment in terms of Ralph really wants to integrate getting control in the games, and especially if you look at the midfield options we have, like with likes of Van de Beek, Bruno Fernandes, obviously you have Fred and McTominay there, you have Paul Pogba who is pending to come back as well. So I think if you are to utilise it, it could go well. The only, I suppose, con to that formation is Sancho, Greenwood, players like that may find it hard to get their places in the team. But this is where I think we have a lot of quality in the squad, but the only thing I'd say is we have an imbalanced squad in terms of the options we have in certain positions. Like we're still hemorrhaging a lot of players from other managerial setups. But I think when you look at that, that's why we struggle to have a set system, a set style of play, set formation. Because every managerial appointment post Ferguson, that manager hasn't really put a stamp on that for their own philosophy. They haven't had their own group of players. Now, Solskjaer this season more or less nearly had it. But you still have the one or two players who are probably not good enough to be at the football club still there. But for large parts, we haven't have a set system or style of play post Sir Alex Ferguson, and we're hoping now, obviously with Ralph here, that he has this particular philosophy that we can adapt it. But it's hard because he had that situation with COVID where Carrington was closed for a few weeks. Not only that, now we are having games on quick turnarounds. Ralph was only having so much time to work on the training ground. And obviously some of these players then are out with injuries, COVID, stuff like that. It's not ideal. But I think Ralph needs to try find that balance and try find it quickly, because before we know it, we're going to be back in March, April again, when we do have that same run of fixtures that we did have in October, November. And if we don't find a run of consistency, then we will be looking at a hard challenge to finish fourth. Even though top three was attainable by Christmas time when Ralph was originally took over, it's a very tough task to get that. So I think when you look at it, I think he needs to find the right rhythm, the right formula, because he started that game off with a 4-2-3-1, which was a Solskjaer formation. He didn't play 4-2-2. Then he went to a diamond. So there's obviously, he's still trying to find the right formula, and I think it's a case of let's try a bit of everything, but then we'll see what works. Where do we have the best statistics in terms of controlling the game over 90 minutes? Because we haven't done that yet. I think under Ralph, the best thing we've done, obviously, as Lee quite rightly mentioned, is keeping as much clean sheets as possible and kind of putting the nip in the bud in terms of the goals we were conceding, which is great. But I think going forward, we're still lacking that kind of creative edge. We're lacking sustaining attacks, winning the ball back quickly, which I think we need to do that. So it's going to take some time, I think, for Ralph to get this done, but hopefully it's going to happen quickly. Obviously, we talk about leaders and we're talking about unity in the squad. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lee, had an interview with Sky Sports this week, obviously in the build-up to the Villa game tomorrow night, at 5:30, a 21-minute interview. And Ronaldo was talking about all different sorts of things in terms of Manchester United's ambitions this year. He proceeded to say that this current Manchester United team should be obviously aspiring to be at least the top three, that we should be fighting for trophies. He said it's unthinkable that we could be obviously 5th, 6th, 7th, fighting for them places. Also proceed to say that maybe the younger players in this generation don't take well to criticism as what he would have back in 2003, 2004, when he would have been surrounded with the likes of Giggs and Neville and so on, and Roy Keane. What do you make of that interview? Because obviously there's a lot of fans have kind of been really happy that he's spoken up in terms of about the mentality in the dressing room, and it's kind of give us a bit of an insight as to how these players are dealing with criticism at the moment. And we talk about levels of commitment in the game. Ronaldo is probably the best example of that, how he built himself up from being a young, inconsistent, tricky winger to one of the best goal scorers of all time, if not the best goal scorer of all time. What did you take from the insight we got from Cristiano in that interview this week?
To be honest with you, I think it was fantastic. I think it was definitely justified. The things he said is what he did say in the interview is probably what every Man United fan up and down the country has been wondering and been thinking for a long time, that the attitude within the changing room and within the club itself isn't right top to bottom. That's the way it come across to me. And to me, it was just saying what we all thought was going on. I suppose this day and age, it's not just football. I think it's just young kids in general. It's been like a shifting mentality with kids these days. They don't take well to criticism, or they don't take well to someone trying to advise them, or you look at Ronaldo, and if it was me and I had my time again, and Cristiano Ronaldo was the main guy in that squad who'd done what he had done, and I was a young up and coming lad trying to make my way at Man United, I'd try to be drinking in every bit of advice he could give me, and I'd be taking that advice and thinking it's off one of the world's, if not the world's, best ever footballer. You cannot buy that. That advice is crucial to you becoming a good footballer. And if you can't take the advice of someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, then there's something wrong with your attitude. Unfortunately, it looks like there is within the changing room, in the dressing room, there's become a somewhat of a divide between the players. Between the experienced players and the guys who've been there and done it, and the young lads who seem to just want to take their own road and their own advice, and probably advice of the wrong people who's giving them the advice, i.e. their agents and people like that. I wonder sometimes whether the footballers these days, the young footballers who has not really as such made it, are on too much money. For me, I think they get they think they're a star before they actually are. They're seeing this kind of money. They're driving around in these cars. They're buying these houses. And for me, it's that I've always said I feel like the money side of the game now has ruined the actual game. It's ruined the attitude of the young players. It's ruined the ambition. It's ruined the. I'm trying to think of the word. The passion for the club. So when we was young players, for me and for many lads I played with, it didn't matter what your contract was. You were just made up that you got a contract to play for Man United. You wanted to be a Man United player, and you would have died for the badge. You would have done anything for your team. That mentality for me in football overall is gone, and it's a generational thing for me. That's why it's gone. And I think the directions football's took and the money in the game now, it's turned the game into a business, not a game. And the young kids, there's no loyalty to any clubs anymore. So for me, the attitude overall with a lot of young players this day and age is wrong.
And when you look at this, this new generation of young footballers, and we talked about, obviously, there's a lot of money in the game, and money seems to be the driving factor for most things in football nowadays. Do you maybe think, as you said, these players to get these big contracts at the age of their late teens, early 20s, and do you think maybe they think, lovely, now I've made it, that's it, that's me, I'm done, Joe type of thing? Is it or do you think maybe they look to say, I'm a young player, I'm playing for Man United now? It doesn't get any.
I honestly think 100% they get that big money contract and they think they made it. They become big time Charlies. They think there's something they're not. You should be playing for the badge. You should be playing for the love of playing for Man United. And I think a lot of these players who come to United, or even some lads what's grown up at United, they get that chance of the contracts and the money, and it goes to the head. And it's a shame to see, but I really do think the money's too high, especially for the lads what haven't really proven themselves yet.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd massively agree, because I think there's some players who get them big contracts, and all of a sudden then, they think they've made it and that's it. When there's so many different levels of development to go, and it's sad really to see, because look, I think post Sir Alex, what we're seeing a lot of is players coming to this football club for the money, not for the badge, but for the money. The wage structure of this football club, we can go into how that's been mismanaged. Now, we're not a financial channel, we're a football podcast, but if you look at the way that United's wage structure has been in this last 7-8 years, it's broken. It needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
But it's just one of these things where, look, that's something that's happening at board level, that not on the footballing side. But again, that's where it comes from, a lack of planning from the football side and the commercial side, and how it was one person running that. But I absolutely agree. I think there's a lot of these players this football club who are overpaid. I think there's a lot of players this football club who aren't good enough for this football club. They're not good enough to wear the shirt. But it's just, again, a situation where some of these players are very fortunate to play for Manchester United, and maybe that in this last 2.5 years they were shielded by Solskjaer, because he took all the flack. Solskjaer took a lot more criticism than he should have got. I think Solskjaer protected a lot of them players, and now we're seeing this side to the players, because there's no Ollie there to protect them anymore. There's no Ollie to take all that criticism in the media, all the criticism on social media, all the criticism from the pundits. There's no Ollie there to protect these players anymore. And I think that's where we're seeing some of the personalities of these players now. They're starting to stand out now, because there's not that I suppose, human shield that they had for 2.5 years. So I think we're going to see who's the real Man United players. We're going to see who are these players who want to play for the shirt, because again, as you said, quite rightly, some are getting paid too much money, some are ego driven, and they're not playing for the badge, they're playing for themselves. And this is where, like, thank God we've someone like Ralph Ragnick, who, look, historically has been a ruthless leader, someone who will get the bad eggs out of the dressing room. And one great thing about Ralph Ragnick as well, he's going into this consultancy role. I think that's like, look, let's say this doesn't work out, like, and we don't finish top 4 or whatever this year. The one great thing about Ralph Ragnick going into this role is he'll be after seeing these characters in the dressing room, and if he's involved in getting this new manager in, he's going to tell that new manager who are the players with down tools, who are these players you can rely on, who can you not rely on.
Yeah,
and I think that's what's great about this. So I'm in the think thought process is, you see this 6-month period, right? Whether we finish top 4, whether we win the Champions League, whether we win the FA Cup, whatever may happen in that time frame, this 6 months is going to identify who's going to be the future of this football club. And if you don't want to be part of it, you know where to go.
I was literally, just before you said it, going to say the only good part about it was having Ralph Rangnick as our manager, because, like I say, he's a ruthless manager. The only thing what confuses me with that, if I knew that I was on a fringe player, and my job could be on the line, or else I could be out to Man United, because the manager is a ruthless manager. Why would the players put in a performance what looked lackluster? Why would they not want to run around the pitch and play? It's a weird one, isn't it? Because you'd imagine, even if they weren't having a good game, you'd imagine that they'd work the trolleys off, to try and impress the manager. But it looks like it's going backwards, as though they don't give two hoops about running around or trying to implement his philosophies. It just confuses me. Watching him actually confuses me at the moment.
It's mystifying, and like getting this, like, obviously insight from both yourselves with regards to this, because both of you play for the football club. You've been in and around Sir Alex Ferguson. You've been in and around the likes of Roy Keane. Imagine you're sitting in a dressing room with them characters: Roy Keane, Gary Neville, Sir Alex, Scholesy, Giggsy, Keystone Park, players like this, players who are hard-working players who play for the badge, right? And you said to these players, see the next crop that are coming through there. They're not going to work hard. They're not going to die on the pitch. They're not going to put everything in for this football club and show what it means to play for this football club, to put the commitment in for the fans. Because that's what all previous Man United teams have done, but this team doesn't do. Phil, obviously, like, where do we go from here now? Because obviously a big game coming up this weekend against Aston Villa. And again, we've a fractured squad at the moment. We've players who are leaking to the media that they don't want to be here. We have players who are bang out of form. We have players whose attitudes are kind of all over the shop. They just look like they don't want to be here. What's your thought process coming into this weekend? What should Ralph do in terms of trying to maintain some sort of solidarity in the dressing room?
For me, I just think Ralph's obviously got a really difficult job at the moment, no matter what he does. Obviously, a lot of the sort of negativity and sort of unrest is with all the players. But I think as a manager, all he can do is he can stick with his philosophy. He can pick a formation. He can pick a team based on who he feels is the best players in that position. And I think he's just got to stick with that then and just, as Lee said before, you need that consistency of playing with the same players on a regular basis to build up them partnerships and sort of relationships within the squad. I think, that's probably the only way I see in terms of, in the short term, us getting any better. And I think, obviously, when you do that as well, if you stick to your sort of formation and your team that you feel is your best 11, you find out then, obviously, if some of the players aren't good enough, you can wean out the weaker players and then maybe identify, right, these are the positions that we definitely need to strengthen, and maybe give, some of the younger lads an opportunity at some points to see if they're good enough, because obviously in a transfer window, you can only sign so many players. And I think, if I'm honest, there's probably only half a dozen players at most for me who's worthy of, wearing the shirt and actually putting a sort of shift in on a regular basis. And I think that's shocking. As you just said then, as a young player, I was playing in the first team and, I had all the other characters in the dressing room around me, I would be scared to even contemplate going out on the pitch and not giving 100%. Never mind, playing well. I think that's the bare minimum that you would have been expected to do. And for me, when I watch Manchester United, obviously I was there on Monday, and it's just mind blowing to see that some of these players are just sauntering through games, and the professional athletes, the fit, they should be in the peak condition. They should be able to run for 90 minutes non-stop, and it's just not happening. And I know a lot of that comes with confidence, but it's your own attitude and it's your own sort of desire and passion that should drive you and make you want to do the best that you can do. And even when you're not playing well, obviously we've touched on Rashford. I think he's obviously a prime example at the moment of somebody who's playing with no confidence. But the body language that he's got as well, it's like everything seems like it's a chore. He's sulking. Things aren't going well for him. His decision making at times is really poor, which is probably the most frustrating thing about him for me. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I think he just does the wrong things at the wrong time. I think when he should take a man on, he passes it, and vice versa. I think that's when a player's not playing well, I think that's a big part of it. You make a lot of wrong decisions, and he's probably got a lot going on, and we don't know what's going on with him in particular, but I feel as though that's spread throughout the team really, and you can see that there's a lot of unrest, and I feel as though it's going to be difficult this season for us to sort of have a settled 11. We're going to struggle to probably finish in the top 4 because I think results again will fluctuate. I don't think we'll have a sort of consistent run of games where we're going to win 5 or 6 games in a row. I just can't see it because I don't feel as though we've got that consistency and the players who can stand up and be counted and you can trust. I think that's obviously what Ronaldo touched on in his interview. The mentality of some of the players and elite, and I think if you're an elite mentality, you need to want to win every single game that you go into, and if you don't win, you put a performance in that everyone can look at and say, well, you know what, they did the best today, they put a shift in, they worked hard, it just wasn't our day. And I feel as though we're a million miles away from that as a club, in on a whole, really, at the moment. So, yeah, it's going to be hard, but we've just got to try and push through this period and see where it takes us.
Most definitely, and I think, Phil, like one thing you mentioned is obviously being at Old Trafford on Monday. One thing, our fan base is as strong as ever in terms of like the atmosphere in Old Trafford. Like you're in there, like the Red Army, that corner particularly on the Stratford end, they sing the whole way through the game.
Yeah. Obviously, I've not been for a long while, and that part of the ground was, from minute 1 to minute 90, it was, bouncing, and I feel for them a lot more than sort of other fans, because they're singing the hearts out all the game, trying to G the lads up, and when players aren't even responding to that. I mean, you're playing in front of 70,000 people who are, the atmosphere must be unbelievable. I mean, I played in front of a big crowd, but probably none that big. And how can you not want to run around and put 100% effort in and try and entertain people? And it baffles me. It really does. I mean, as Lee said, the times have changed and stuff, and kids are getting a lot of money these days and stuff. Maybe too young, and maybe the love of the game gets taken out of that when you have all that stuff. But I just can't get my head around how, as a professional athlete, it's your job. That should be, the bare minimum, that you go out there and you work hard for 90 minutes. And it's just crazy that some of these players are getting away with it. Really, it's wrong. But yeah, there's obviously nothing we can do about it. It's just the manager's hands are tied as well. I think the players have got too much power. I think back in the day, if there was players who weren't running around, then it'd get dealt with straight away. You'd either be pinned up in the changing room, or you wouldn't be playing again. But unfortunately, because of the players and the sort of wage bills and the transfer fees and all that kind of thing, some of these players are just getting picked no matter what, and it's wrong.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And if some of these players could show the same commitment that our fans do, Like, we fans from all over the world who go to Old Trafford every week, they spend their hard-earned money to go to Old Trafford. Maybe some people might spend their week's wages just on that one trip to Old Trafford. Like, I can say from my own point of view, like, if I go to a game and the game's a 12:30 kickoff, let's say, for example, I have to get up at 12 o'clock that night to get up and get on the bus at 1 o'clock in the morning to get to Dublin Airport, fly out to the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the commitment, let's say, an Irish fan would have to show. Or, like, let's say there's a fan flying from America. Let's say there's a fan flying from Germany, wherever it may be across the world. Or even just in the UK, someone driving up from London, someone driving from Birmingham, or even someone from Manchester who booked a day off work to go and watch their team. Like, fans, our worldwide fan base shows so much commitment to this football club. And when you see the lack of commitment that these players show, it's absolutely disgusting sometimes. And like, as you said, Phil, like, in terms of you're playing in front of 76,000 people live, like, and as you said, the fans are always singing their heart out. The Red Army sing their heart out. Stratford End, Everett, all around the stadium, they're showing, they're showing the utmost support. They're showing their love, the passion, and everything for the football club. And then, like, when you see sometimes lack of effort, like the lack of, let's say, sometimes for a player to win for a 50-50 and try win that challenge and win that second ball. I was watching the game here with Amy the other night, and like, the amount of times we didn't go for a second, never mind contest a second, like, never mind win it, right? The amount of times we didn't go to contest a second ball, I was mystified. Like, where like, you don't win the first ball, fair enough, right? Look, it happens. We all play ball. It happens. You don't win the first ball. Show commitment to win that second ball, or win it, or show the commitment at least. We don't see that, and it's, again, you're absolutely right, lads. You hit the nail on the head when you said, like, they're getting paid too much money, they're protected too much, and again, like, if you're not motivated to play for Man United and you're not motivated to play for arguably the biggest football club in the world, then I don't know what to say to you. You know,
just before you move on that, Keane, as well, that just obviously got me thinking. Then when you mentioned about, obviously, when you come over to watch a game, you're getting up at 12 o'clock to fly over, and I think, I mean, this might sound stupid or whatever, but for me, I feel as though the people like yourselves and all these other fans that travel, days and hours, and the amount of sacrifice they give to just come and watch a game, and the amount of money they spend to come and watch a game, I feel as though they should make, a little video of all these fans that are coming to watch the games and put that together, and the players should just sit down and just watch that, and that then, for me, would make them hopefully realise that you've got all these people from all over the world, all over the country, coming, spending massive amounts of money to come and travel, to come and watch and support a football team. And you lads aren't even turning up on a match day and giving 100% effort to sort of show these people what you can do, supporting you. And I think that is something that, for me, when I was at the club, it was a completely different sort of environment, and that would never be accepted. But at this moment in time, the way the club is, I feel as though if I was in that dressing room and I knew what was going on and the confidence wasn't there and people were up and down in terms of performance levels, if we all sat down in a room and watched that and seen how much effort people go through to come and watch a game and support the club, I would feel ashamed and I'd feel embarrassed and I'd feel disgusted with myself that I'm not even going out on a field to do my own job and put in 100% effort to show the fans, the very minimum of what they expect. And I think that would be something that I feel as though, it probably wouldn't hit home to all of them, because some of them are, they've got their own egos and, whatever. But I think that would be something that some of them maybe could look at and think, do you know what we're doing here is just totally, unacceptable, and it's well off the mark, and that may be something, that happens, or it may not happen. But I feel as though that would be something that could maybe, put into perspective what's actually going on, and how much of a crime it is really that the club's allowing this level of performances, and the fans are, being shown basically a total lack of respect by the attitude and the performance levels. It's just totally not good enough.
It isn't, and as you said to Phil, like the most important word I'd use there is perspective, because I think some of these players need maybe to get that sense of reality and see some perspective, and like to see how lucky they are to be playing for this football club. Because when you're getting that big wage, you're getting to put on that Man United shirt, and you're going out in front of 76,000 people. That shouldn't be considered a luxury. That should be considered a privilege. A privilege. To be put on that same shirt as a Bobby Charlton, a Dennis Law, a Brian Robson, or a Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, players like that, the greats, the absolute greats and legends of this football club. But for some of these players, they think they're bigger than the football club. There's some of these players who think their brand is bigger than the football club. And that's not right. It's not right. And it's one of these things where there's always so much you can put up with as a fan before you're like, do one. I think I'm always supportive of all the players. I'm always supporting from minute 1 to minute 90. I go to a game, I don't stop singing myself. I'd be in that same boat. My girlfriend probably would kill me for half time for singing the whole way to the game. I come home with no voice, but I make sure there's no stone unturned in terms of supporting the team. And I think when you look at sometimes the commitment these players and isn't there, and we're calling into question, their love for the football club, their love for the badge, and sometimes after a game, some of these players they might even come over and clap the fans. Even after some of the away games this season, I know a lot of fans that go home and away, and a couple of fans tell me at an away game that some of the players aren't coming over and clapping to the away fans. So, by the way, any ground the United's away support goes to, they outsing every single rival club when they go away from home. And this is why I was saying earlier, I am buzzing. I'm fingers crossed I'm going over to Madrid for the Champions League game. I can't wait to experience being in there amongst the Red Army, sing your heart out supporting the team. But how dare some of these players not go over to our away support when they try to carry you through the game? How dare you not go over and just acknowledge them after the game and thank them for their support, unconditional support as well. I think that's where a lot of fans become disillusioned with some of these players, and this is why people might go mad when someone criticizes a player. We're not criticizing them personally. Sometimes we just say look, we'd like to see a bit more commitment, a bit more desire, and to show why you want to play for the football club. There's too much, I suppose. It's too much fame in football now at this point in time. It's more not just a game anymore. Do you know what I mean? There's so much money in television, brand deals, the whole lot, and it kind of takes away from the fact that some of these players are footballers. That's your profession. Show what you're worth. If you're getting paid that much a week, go out on the pitch and show it to the fans. And then the fans will love you. The fans will keep supporting you. But until then, if fans are criticizing you, then, or if the pundits are criticizing you, people on a podcast are criticizing you, expect it if you're not showing the commitment. Do you know what I mean? Don't be down in tools. Don't throw your toys out of the pram. Just go out there and put it all on the line for Manchester United Football Club, or for any football club for that matter. If you're a professional footballer, you have an obligation to your fan base to go out and put it all on the line for 90 minutes. Then after that is your business what you do in your life, and that's completely, that's your own business what you do. But if you're not putting it all out there on the football pitch for 90 minutes for fans who ultimately as well pay your wages at the end of the day, because United's worldwide fan base, we pump so much money into that football club. Now some of it might get taken out. That's another story for another day. But we pay your wages at the end of the day. So show your commitment, show your thanks, acknowledge your fans after a game. So do all of that. But again, it's just one of these things where maybe this day and age, some of these footballers might be too soft, and maybe we're probably victims of being in that era where it's Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, players like that who would rather die than put in, than show a lack of effort. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where maybe sometimes we become a bit disillusioned with the game, because we were all I was brought up and watching all these players. My name says it itself. I was named after one of Manchester United's greatest ever captains in Roy Keane. I was brought up watching that type of football. And then when I see some players pull out of a 50-50 challenge, I'm like, how? is just mind-boggling. But I might have went on a bit of a rant there, guys. I do apologise, but it's one of these things where, look, sometimes when you support a football club and you support them through thick and thin, I think, and sometimes enough's enough, and you do need to put things into perspective. And maybe some of these players need that. They need a sense of reality and perspective that they're lucky to be playing for this football club, and that's it really. But I don't want to go on about this all night because I'll drive myself mad and I'll end up going on and on and on. And I know the guys here showing great appreciation for us in the comments tonight. So thanks very much for your support. And don't forget, guys, do smash like the video, hit that subscribe button. We do have a lot of content coming these coming weeks and months. And again, we will have the Wednesday podcast with Marcus on Wednesday. Obviously, Wayne and Paul Parker. Obviously Dave Scott Wooten. Look, if you want Manchester United players support, insight. If you want, professional insight, come over to this channel here at Talk Devils. It's absolutely fantastic. But parts of this show that I always love in this podcast, not just breaking down players, not so much breaking down the insight, all that type of stuff. What I always love doing on the show is obviously breaking down the tactical side, because obviously with the guys obviously playing for Man United, playing the professional game, they would have the insight in terms of how players work, how setups work, and so on. But obviously, like last week, we talked about the opposition guys in terms of Aston Villa, and by all accounts, they played quite well on Monday. Now, this week they've actually done really, really well in this window. They brought in Philippe Coutinho on loan, and they brought in Luca Dean from Everton. And Lee, I'll come to you first, obviously, on these signings. Obviously, look, Villa down just below mid-table, and Steven Gerrard seems to be showing a bit of pulling power by bringing in these players. And to Villa, apart from the loss there, the players really seem to be on board and buying into kind of Gerrard's idea. And look, he's bringing in one of the best left backs in the league, and though I suppose previously one of the best midfield players in Europe in Philippe Coutinho. Looking at these two players coming into this game, obviously Dini has a decent record against United. Coutinho always seems to show up for that game against United in terms of scoring screamers against us. What do you make, first of all, of Villa attracting them two players as a football club, but also the threats that they could potentially pose tomorrow?
Mate, absolutely great window for them, if you ask me. Great signings. Villa's got a strong squad to start off with. I love McGinn at United. I know that might sound a bit, but I'd love a player like McGinn at United because I think he's a United player. I think going on what I've seen this season of Villa, quite a few of their players walk into our squad. If I'm being quite honest, so I was worried before the signings come about this match, about us actually, getting a result. I'm a little bit more worried now, to be honest, with the players they've signed. We're going to have to be at our best. Let's be honest. We're going to really have to be at our best. And sometimes, I know we've gone on about it all podcast about the effort, but sometimes effort wins your matches. If you're not playing well, sometimes you can scrape it. You can scrape through a game with just putting the effort in, and the effort's going to have to change this match to be able to do anything. I'm unconfident. I've never give on this podcast a review where we've given a score prediction at the end of the cast where I've said that United will lose, and I still don't want to do that. But I'm very, very from the match on Monday. I'm very unconfident that we could get a win. I think if we get a draw at this moment in time, I think that's going to be a good result for us, which is an awful thing to say when you're talking about Man United versus Aston Villa. For years they've been a given, but their squad at the moment for me is not. It's as good, if not stronger, than our squad. So I'm a little bit worried. Just touching. I know you went on about it, and we've all gone on about it a little bit, but I was dying to get my 2 pence within about the supporters, to be honest. So because I was actually I could feel myself getting riled up a little bit as you were speaking about it, as being a supporter myself and a lad what's been a keen supporter of Man United all my life, whether I was playing for them or not. It's no surprise that Man United fans aren't thick. You know what I mean? They know the game. They're not stupid. They know the game. Man United fans will accept players being off form and not playing well and not scoring goals. But it's no surprise why Man United fans love Cavani. It's no surprise why Man United fans, I've just been writing it down there, Fred this season is coming for a lot of criticism, but also gets a lot of praise from the United fans, because these are players which work the socks off and don't go missing in games and put the effort in, not just for themselves, but put the effort in for the supporters. These are the type of guys we need in the squad to show the supporters that they care. Yeah, tell us, another example, what I love to see the other week, all he did, he tracked a guy down from left back, put a tackle in, punched the air. He was buzzing that he'd made that tackle. He looked committed. He looked like he was there for the cause. And supporters will take to that all day long. For me, that is the kind of players we need. And it is, like you say, guys, great points. There's no excuse for the guys, for the lads who've been put out there not to put that effort in. I can take players not playing well and going through a bad patch, but they've got to put that effort in, and they've got to show the supporters who go week in, week out, and show that dedication, that they're actually dedicated to the supporters too. And I think, that was a very good third point. And I had to get it in because I could feel myself getting riled up as you were speaking about it. So I felt like you had to get that one in today.
Absolutely. And like, look, you're absolutely bang on. And again, sometimes it's absolutely criminal when you see players pulling off tackle. I believe that Tellez challenge was in the Arsenal game, wasn't it, as well?
I absolutely loved it. He didn't even have the best game, to be honest with you, but just to see him buzzing that he'd gone back and put it, it showed the commitment what he had in that game. Elanga, when he come on the other day and he riled the crowd up, a young lad, it showed he was trying and he was committed. United fans will take to that all day. Any football fans who's supporting a club will take to attitude. Whether you're a good player, whether you're having a bit of an off season, you put that attitude in, and United fans will praise you all the way. And that's all they need to do. I can't understand why they don't do it. It without swerving, it gets on my nerves.
Yeah, trust me, I've been biting my tongue all night when I'm talking about these players. I really have. Like, thankfully the swear jar is right beside me, so I'm not gonna delve into it because I don't want to be broke by the end of the podcast. But yeah, look, absolutely, look, it's a situation where hopefully Rangnick weeds out some of these players, who aren't committed, and then he tells that new manager, and I mentioned it to Marcus the other night, whether it's a Pochettino, whether it's a Ten Hag, whether it's someone who prospectively wants high energy football and wants committed football and wants a high press and wants to control football matches. You can't have some of these players who are here, because again, that precedent is already set, that they've been, I suppose, mollycoddled for 2.5, 3 years. They've got, like, again, as I said, Solskjaer was that human shield who took all the BS basically from everywhere. He took all of that stuff, and then as soon as he's gone, it's no surprise dressing room leaks are coming out. 17 players want to leave, 13 players want to leave, whatever the rumors were, players are saying they're fit, but then they're not being picked in the match day squad. None of this was happening under the previous manager. I'm not saying Ralph is the issue. Ralph definitely isn't. But what I'm saying is, it's no surprise when the manager was getting every bit of criticism, and the manager, people are saying it was just the manager that was the issue, which maybe some of his team selection is rough. Yes, they were. Maybe some of his tactics were off. Yes, they were. His in-game management was off sometimes. Yes, it was. But one thing that was abundant during his tenure, especially in the last 6 months of his tenure, was he was the only one taking the criticism, taking on the chin, and openly in interviews saying that he was to blame. And I think that's where now these players have no Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to hide behind. And now they're getting found out. And they don't like getting found out because they're being babies. They're throwing their toys out of the pram. But again, this is where, look, we'll see in this next 6 months who's here for the long haul, who's here to be in the fight, who's here to be in that rebuild. Like, as much as I say Cristiano Ronaldo is a great leader, Cristiano Ronaldo will not want to be here to fight for 7th place.
No.
Bruno Fernandes will not want to fight for 7th place. David De Gea, as much as I love him, and he's one of the most committed goalkeepers in the last decade, probably has been United's best player. If you're talking between 2012 to 2022, if you're talking that overall period, bar Robin Van Persie for them 2 years, David De Gea has been our best player in the last decade. David De Gea's stuff is for taking 10. He's one of our only players in the squad, bar Phil Jones, won the Premier League. and Ronaldo, obviously, they're not going to want to stay for too much longer if this is happening and they're in a fractured dressing room. They're not challenging for trophies because at the end of the day, these players are still top players, you know. But again, it's mystifying kind of how they can get away with it for so long. Now, the minute their human shield is gone, now it's all of a sudden this player's unhappy, that player's unhappy. There's a whole cohesion of players not happy. They're not happy of training in the dark until 5:30 in the evening. Like that, again, that for me is just absolute nonsense. Like, that's nonsense.
I hate the talk of a rebuild. I absolutely hate the talk of a rebuild because I feel like we've been rebuilding. But if these players aren't committed to the club, for me, and Ralph Rangnick can bring players in who obviously he's been associated before within German football, and he knows he can bring in players who'll play for him and play for his philosophies. I can only see that's the way he's going to go. I think he'll ship out the bad eggs, and he'll bring in the likes of Hadia from Leipzig, who he knows.
Yes, Arya as well.
He knows and he trusts, and you know what I mean. They might not be big name signings. I mean, I'd like him to bring in players which are Premier League proven, as in Neves or within Declan Rice, Bissouma. We know they can do it in the Premier League. But I've got a feeling that Rangnick might just bring in some players we're not really familiar with, but who we trust and who he knows who'll stick to his philosophies and do it well. And I can see it happening. I really can see that happening.
Yeah. Again, there's so many things I think that we need to change. And I think this process, because I think that's a word that's been thrown around a lot in these last couple of years, is process, trust the process, understanding the process. I was understanding that under Ollie in terms of where we were going, what that was, and where we wanted to be. Eventually, that didn't work out, but you could see the type of squad we were building in terms of identifying young quality players to come through. Obviously, you get your Rashfords, your Greenwoods, players like that. And then we were buying kind of British-based players to kind of help suit the physicality of the league. Obviously, you looked at like the likes of Maguire, Wan-Bissaka. Consequently, they haven't been a raging success, but you could see kind of, what his idea was, in that regard. And I think maybe right now, we have to reassess. We kind of have to throw a new book at it, And you're absolutely right. You think Ralph Rangnick maybe bringing in players he trusts, bringing in players who, yes, he had in Germany, but he knows will have high energy, will have high commitment, will suit a press. Maybe that will be the right idea. And I think Thomas Tuchel done that the minute he came to Chelsea. Like, Chelsea were a back four team under Lampard. Lampard was picking X, Y, and Z. Like, he was picking, let's say, the Mounts, Tomori's, players like that. Then Tuchel comes in. He came in. He was like, right, I'm playing 3-5-2, 3-4-3. Right, Rudiger, you're in. Havertz, you're in. And Jorginho, you're back in there. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what he done. He identified, right, these are key little parts of my system. These are players who are going to work. These players who played under Lampard, okay, you're not going to work. Like, maybe Ralph Rangnick needs to do this. Obviously, in this 6-month period, probably going to be hard. But maybe Ralph can maybe work with, prospectively, who that new manager is. And you're weeding out them players right now. You're telling that, like, if Man United have a plan here, they can realistically say, right, we've this manager coming in the summer. Obviously, they're not going to announce it right now because he's probably at another football club, most likely right now. If Man United have this plan in place, which they say they do, rather than this new manager and John Murtough and Darren Fletcher should be in communication right now and saying, like, look, long term, we don't think these certain players aren't a fit. Our targets right now need to be identified right now so we can bring them in either in January or in the summer and get the system integrated for what it needs to be next season.
Yeah, because I think I've mentioned it on the podcast, and I heard you mention it to Marcus on the podcast. I think the spine. I think that's the key word at the minute. Is the spine of the team isn't good enough. Obviously we've got Ronaldo up front, but I kind of dismiss Ronaldo because we know we've not got. We can't do a rebuild on Ronaldo. He's only got a season or two left in him before he's probably moved on. So for me, we need straight down the middle, I mean, we bought Varane, but we need someone to partner Varane. I mean, I love Rudiger. I think Rudiger is a fantastic centre back. I think we need a world class midfielder, and I still think we need a Haaland or someone up front so we can get that spine and build a team around that spine. You look at the spine we've got, and we've got Fred and McTominay, who we're saying is our best 2 defensive midfield players, and fair play to them.
They're doing the job of one player, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've said it before. They are, although we wish we didn't have to pick that. Sometimes we're left with no other option but to pick them. And fair play to them. They have been, the last couple of games, probably our best players. But we've said it hundreds of times, they ain't good enough. They show the commitment, which I love. And like I say, I praise Fred all day long because he doesn't go missing and he tries his knackers off every game. That's what I like about him. But he isn't the answer. And if we want to get back to where United should be, which we need to be, because we're Man United, we need a strong, world-class spine. And at this moment in time, we haven't got it, mate.
Yeah, and that's a massive problem. Me and Marcus discussed on Wednesday's podcast. If you haven't caught that, do scroll down on the channel and Talk Devils and do check that out, obviously, after this video. Stay tuned in because we do have to get through our starting 11s and score predictions as well on the show because, obviously, look, we like playing that little bit of bingo on the show. Normally, Phil is a crafty individual when it comes to picking his lineups and score predictions as of late. So hopefully, I'm actually hoping for once I can get a win in here, or at least Lee can get a win here, because Phil seems to be crafty at picking these little 11s and these little score predictions, and then like he's almost becoming a Conor McGregor figure here, but he's also becoming like Mystic Max. So like, look, I think we're gonna have to, myself and Lee may have to become like the world's greatest tag team out of WWE and try team up to take Phil's predictions down. So look, what we're going to do here is we are going to get our starting 11 predictions. We'll get score predictions after them from the collective panel in regards to that. But also, guys, people in the comments, give us your starting 11s, your formations, who you think should start, who you think shouldn't start, who you think should be dropped. Let us know. Phil, I'll come to you on that note, just so me and Lee can obviously tear apart our own 11s when we get the 11s up. But Phil, give us your starting 11, give us your 1 to 11, obviously formation, and so on.
I think if I get this week's prediction right, we need to get it trending Mystic Marsh, because
Marsh, yeah,
I've been getting them all right all season, but no. I think team selection wise, I actually feel as though it'll be a similar team to what we played the other night. I think there'll be 3 changes. I think, obviously, Dalot, with the injury that he suffered, I know, obviously, seeing he'd had stitches and that looked quite nasty, the little gash that he had on his ankle. So I think, obviously, Wan-Bissaka will probably come back in at right back for him. Obviously, McTominay's not available. So in terms of if we're going to play the diamond formation, I think Donny van der Beek potentially could come in there for McTominay in the midfield. And I feel as though, obviously, because of the way Rashford's been playing and obviously, you know, the confidence levels and all that kind of thing, for me, I actually feel as though Ralph needs to just make the decision and take it out of his hands and just sort of give him a bit of a break and sort of, you know, give somebody else an opportunity who's going to, you know, at least show the work rate and the effort. And for me, if it was me, I would give Elanga a shout and try and, you know, give him a chance. But I actually think he'll put Sancho in. I think, obviously, he's not played for, you know, a couple of games. And obviously, I think he will come back in just to freshen it up a little bit. So, yeah, I think it'll be the same team other than that. And obviously, is Ronaldo, I think he's still, you know, doubtful, or maybe, you know, 50-50 whether he's ready to start. I know he's been struggling a little bit. So, yeah, I think if he's basically ready to play and he's, you know, saying he's fully fit, then I think he will start ahead of Cavani. But obviously, if he's not fit, then I think obviously it'll still be Cavani up top.
Yeah, hopefully, you know, Ronaldo is fit. Now, Ralph did say in his press conference that he is fit, and I literally just seen on social media that Ronaldo was sent home. Well, I'll just say to this person reporting this, you're definitely wrong, because Ralph Ragnick said he trained tomorrow and he's training today. So,
in that case, I'll say 4 changes then, and Ronaldo to start up front.
Yeah. Let's get Lee back in there. What are you saying, Lee?
You can't change your mind now, Phil. You said that's it. You said Cavani.
Oh, well, I didn't know if you... Well, I'm blaming my fantasy footy team. He said he was 75% fit. So,
and to be fair, I've not heard you say that Luke Shaw too and Tellez is playing. So I'm presuming you think Luke Shaw's playing too. So that's we've got Keane because Luke Shaw's can't play, can he?
Yeah, he's suspended. Him and McTominay are both suspended this week. So Mystic Marsh.
Oh well, yeah. Suspended, and natural replacements just come in, don't they? So
we're trying to sting.
I'm not as savvy as you two with all the suspensions and injuries and stuff.
We've got to keep up.
You've got too much time on your hands to analyse all that.
I was literally going to say when I was giving my team, I'm just going to say the same as Phil, but I had to.
I wouldn't do that. Oh man, I'm not playing. All the ones I've suspended or injured, I'm not playing.
Lee, on that note, give us your formation and also your 1 to 11 for tomorrow.
I wrote a couple of formations out, if I'm being honest. I don't want to say 4-2-2-2 because for me it doesn't work. Not with the players in the squad we've got. I don't know whether we'll go back to 4-2-3-1. I just got a feeling he might go and try and start 4-2-3-1. That's the team. That's what I've wrote down. I know he said we want 3 in midfield, and it feels like that's the way we can go forward and win games. But I've just gone with my head, and I've gone obviously David De Gea in nets. That's a given. I've gone obviously with Wan-Bissaka on the right. I've gone Lindelof and Varane in the centre, and I've gone Alex Telles, which obviously it's a given. I think Rangnick's already come out and said that he will be starting in his press conference. So Telles. I think obviously with McTominay not available, I think Fred's a starter. He's going to start Fred. And I think the decision what he's got to make is whether he plays Donny or Matic alongside him. If he goes with his formation, I've personally gone for Donny. All the reason being is obviously in his post-match interview, he said that Donny kind of changed the game when he come on for that last 20 minutes. And he felt like we got a little bit more control over the midfield area, which I feel will be vital against Villa on Saturday. So I've gone then for my defensive 2 in midfield, and then Fernandes straight in the middle, and then I've gone Sancho and Greenwood at the side of them, and then I've obviously gone Cristiano Ronaldo if he's fit playing up front.
So basically, you've copied my team.
Copied your team apart from Tellez.
Yeah, wow, fair enough.
And Elanga's not in. I'm not putting Elanga in.
No, well, I didn't say Elanga was going to play. I just thought I said Sancho, but I think if it was me, I after what I seen the other night, obviously I was there. The way he came on and had an impact on the game, I feel as though he deserves an opportunity. Maybe not this game, but in the coming week.
Can I ask you a question, Phil? Because obviously you was at the game, and obviously when you're at the game, you can see a lot more what goes on than when you watch it on telly. With Donny coming on that last 20 minutes, did he change the midfield like Ralph Rangnick said he did, or could you see that when you was there?
Yeah. I think he did. I don't think it was obviously like a massive difference where it sort of completely transformed the game in terms of like us looking more solid and sort of a little bit more competitive in there. But I just think when he came on, because prior to that it looked as though Villa was sort of overrunning on us, and they was being able to ping balls into the front men at ease, because the gaps were too big. I think when he came on, he just gave us that little bit more sort of control and sort of got a few like for me when you're looking at the midfield, I always see the best midfielders, they get 5-10 passes in and keep the ball moving and ticking over, whereas when I was watching the other night, a lot of our play, it was like 1 and 2 passes, and then it was either, looking for that worldie of a switch, or it was, it looked everything a little bit rushed. Whereas when you see a bit forced, like, not sort of, keeping the ball moving and waiting for that opportunity to play forward and doing it with conviction. It was more, done 2 or 3 passes. Now we need to go forward, or we need to, play a worldie.
I think that's one of the major problems too. Just before we get Keane's team, I remember obviously when we used to play, we used to go and watch every match. And what used to stand out for me we was never rushed. If you understand what I mean. No. So if something wasn't on, they just switched the ball. They come back out, But when we did penetrate, we penetrated, and 9 times out of 10, it was precise and it worked. I feel
it was the intensity. It was the intensity of the actual.
I feel like we rushed that ball now.
Yeah.
But and Bruno's the main culprit for it. He's our main creative player, and he's the guy what does all of the creativity and makes things happen. But the difference is, the 10 times he tries it, 8 of the times it gets cut out or it goes out of play, and I just feel like that's the massive difference in today's squad with the squad what we grew up with and the squad what we played with, is when we did use that intensity and the through balls, and it worked. You know what I mean? It was precise. And it worked, but that's gone now.
I think when you compare that, obviously, when you see the likes of obviously Bruno now, who's playing them balls from deep, are the ones that are trying to play people in, so they're running in behind or diagonals to sort of set your wings away. I always look at it and compare to obviously when you can't really compare it because Paul Scholes was probably the best midfielder that there ever has been who could do that and play them diagonal balls. But obviously the players, when them balls were getting played in, were always sort of on the move, and it was pinpoint and it was with a purpose.
Yeah.
As soon as that ball was done, they knew that it was control, touch out the feet, whip, and there's people in the box ready and waiting.
I suppose we've just been spoiled probably with one.
And I get that. But even when we do play balls, there's not many people in the box ready to receive a cross because they don't expect it. And as a centre forward, if you're not expecting a ball to get crossed in, there's nothing worse because when I used to watch Van Nistelrooy, he just used to stay in the box, and when it went out wide, he just knew that the delivery was coming in.
I mean, you had Giggs and you had Beckham, players like that.
You knew 9 times out of 10 that ball's getting whipped in.
That's the difference.
Whereas now you don't know if they're cutting back, are they coming outside, inside, are they just going to give it away? It's frustrating, but
it is, mate. It is. Sorry about that, Keane. We just had a little talk between ourselves there for a minute.
I appreciate when you do that because I just sit back and listen to the insight. I love it, But like I agree with you on that point. And if you look at some of the goals we scored earlier on in the season, when we didn't have just Bruno as a creative outlet, when Pogba was there, we were creating more chances, and it wasn't just Bruno pinging in hopeless balls. And even if you look at the couple of games where, remember the Young Boys game in the Champions League where Bruno played that pass and Ronaldo was anticipating he was going to play it. Like Ronaldo is that number 9. The rest of our number 9 is Cavani too. But the rest of them don't anticipate that run. They don't anticipate the ball coming in. I think that's where, there's the difference where we'd have a Rude up there, you'd have Rooney up there, Saha, Tevez, those players like that would go that extra inch to obviously make that run in precise time, but also be expecting that cross. Yeah. Maybe strikers aren't like that these days. They all kind of want it into feet and they'll go on the half turn. So maybe the strikers today, in this day and age, are different to maybe what we would have had 10, 20 years ago when you had the Rudes. You had the obviously Rooney's, players like that who could do everything, I suppose, anticipate movements, but also kind of know where to be. So yeah, it's different to what we have now. The standard is just much different.
Just that the work ethic thing, what you mentioned earlier, Keane. Obviously, you're an avid Man United supporter and have been all your life. You look at the likes, like say Bruno Fernando now in that position, and going back to what we was on about of effort and willingness to try and be the best you can be for Man United. Who would you rather watched playing football? Would you rather watch Bruno as he is now, or the likes of Ji-sung Park in the centre of midfield? What would you rather see?
Sorry, I actually missed half that. Cut out. Can you just repeat what you said?
Yeah. Just going on about, obviously, when we was on about the lack of effort in squads and things like that. Obviously, we've got a world-class player in Bruno now at the minute in time. But as a supporter, as you are, what would you rather have watched? Would you rather have watched the likes of Bruno as he is now, or the likes of a Ji-sung Park in the centre midfield who give everything for the cause? What as a supporter would you rather have watched?
I'd probably rather a Ji-sung Park because there's the effort, there's the desire, there's 90 minutes worth of commitment. Now Bruno is good; he still shows commitment, he shows creativity, but sometimes he can be a bit moany. Sometimes he can. Yeah. I'm not going to use the word I was going to say, but he can get onto the referee sometimes a bit too much.
It's a big sulk, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think Ji-sung Park was actually people can say he wasn't creative, but he'd get into the box and he'd commit and he'd make runs and he would chip in with an odd goal or two. I think that's where some of these players, again, football is probably a bit different.
Fletcher was another one like that who maybe didn't get the appreciation. For how good of a footballer he was. People just used to see him as maybe a bit of a runner and break the play up and stuff. And he was another player who was technically amazing because we obviously played and trained with him, and what a player he was all around, really. But
I commented on the podcast with Marcus the other day, and he was on about teams and things like that. And one of the comments I made on there was in the last season, Sir Alex Ferguson won the Premier League. The players he had weren't a world class squad. If you look at that players, we had
midfield.
John O'Shea, people like this. You know what I mean? West Brown, they weren't the world's best, but what they had was an identity, and they had team spirit, and they would have died on the pitch for each other. And for me, it's just so obvious the difference from when we were playing and them players we were playing with to the players they are now. It's just it's night and day. It's chalk and cheese. It's just completely different, mate.
Do you know what I think it comes down? I'm sorry to keep harping on. We'll get Keane's prediction and starting 11 in a minute, but just I was obviously thinking when you were talking before about obviously what's going wrong this day and age, and obviously when we was there, and I used to always get drilled into me, and I'm sure you did as well, Lee. Every age group, every manager, every coach, you train how you play. And I think in training, I don't know what United's first team are doing in training currently and sort of, in the past few years under, the managers they've had. But for me, it just looks as though, some of these players in training, you can't, I used to remember if I trained well, I would always go into the Saturday game or whenever I was playing and play well. If I was sloppy in training and I thought, do you know what, I've had a bad game there in training or whatever, it goes into the game and you don't realise it. But if you're not putting 100% in and training with that intensity and practicing the things that you're going to do on a match day, every single day to the details, then it goes into the game. And some of these players, you can see that in the performances, because you're not telling me you're training every single day, working on stuff all week to go onto a football pitch in front of 70,000 people and perform the way they're doing, because it can't happen. It's just not, it doesn't make any sense to anybody. Do you know what I mean?
And so do you know what stands out to me in that? Joe, before the Wolves game, when the players are walking out, this is the one is playing. Obviously, you know the score before a game, the Old Trafford. This is one is playing. The players are walking out. The body language and all the players, bar Phil Jones, he looked like he was well up for it. He was soaking up the moment. He was the person who was ready to put his body and soul on the line for Man United. Yeah. The rest of them look like they're already bet before the whistle was blown.
Yeah.
And
I remember Chucky by McClure. On a Friday, we used to play local lads versus out-of-town lads, and he would beg us to calm down, and we was kicking 10 minutes of crap out each other because we wanted to impress that bad, and we wanted to be in that starting lineup. Do you understand what I mean? That was the level of commitment to where you've got your manager telling you to calm down, and you wouldn't because you wanted to impress, and you wanted to be so like that was just for the reserves. So when you had the chance to play in the first team, my God, you would have jumped through fire to get in that first team squad. Do you know what I mean? It's just a different thing in it. And like I said with Phil Jones, he's been there at that time where that was the attitude from probably you under 16 signing a YTS all the way up to the first team. Every player had that same attitude because every player, although you had friends there and although you made friendships, you was competing again to get in that first team. That was your ultimate goal, and you would have done whatever to get there. Nowadays, it just seems too easy.
Yeah, and again, it's too many of these players are just they're privileged. Like they think playing for Man United's a luxury. They're getting their wage, and that's it. This is a nice, cushy job. It blood and sugar. Like I don't want to say the word, but it's a privilege. It's a privilege to play for this football club, and you're dancing all over now when you're putting on performances like you do week in, week out. So I don't know how we change it. Well, I do know how we change. We've been so many players, but look, you can't do that in one window. This isn't FIFA. This is a quick fix where you go into FIFA and you can buy 10, 15 players in the transfer window and sell 10, 15 players.
It's hard when you bought into a rebuild with Ollie and you could see what was happening there. to then scrap that full idea and then go back to let's get rid of them all and rebuild again. That disheartens me, to be honest.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And like again, as I said, when you look at Solskjaer's reign, you could see in them 2-3 years. Yes, okay, we lost a couple of semi-finals. Yes, we lost the Europa League final, but there was natural progression in terms of there was progression in terms of right. Look, third in his first season, second is next season. Okay, next step was get a title challenge this year and win a trophy. Okay, that wasn't possible. That wasn't possible after October, November. Okay, it was time for him to go. Completely acceptable. But then some of these players ended completely down tools even after he left. Look, I think that speaks volumes in terms of where they are. It's just one of these things. But I'm just going to come to Reese's comment before I give my 11 because I think something I just mentioned, you can't bin these players. Reese says, in his first summer window, Louis van Gaal did bin 16 players he deemed not suitable. If United are ambitious, they bin a large number. It can happen again, but don't bin 15 or 16. Yeah, there was a couple of players Van Gaal did bin that summer that I was a bit mystified that he binned. I wouldn't have binned Chicharito. I'm just going to say that out there now. When he left to go that summer, that broke my heart because I absolutely loved him. He was someone who knew to be in the box and get them little tap-ins and little moments. He was almost like even though Ollie was brilliant and Ollie's anticipation in the box, but Chicharito was someone else as well who could come off the bench and be that intelligent player. When he left, that was a disheartening moment because he was a great super sub. But I'm going to get to my starting 11 there now. It's actually a completely different formation to both of the lads. I'm actually going to go what we went in the last 20 minutes in terms of the midfield shape, because I think when you look at Villa's midfield, when you have likes of Ramsey, Douglas Luiz, obviously McGinn is out, but I dare to say they'll have another midfield player in there who can, similar idea, same philosophy, high energy, control the ball. So for me, obviously with McTominay being out, I don't fancy us going with a two midfield of Matic and Fred, because I think Fred would get overrun. I think Fred would do Matic's job for him. I think we get quite exposed. So I'm going to go with the diamond. Now this does mean I'm leaving one or two out, but I'm doing this to take the fact that there's a certain couple of players out. So I'm just doing this to kind of match Villa's intensity in midfield, but also to make sure that we can control the game and bring our attackers and fullbacks into play. So obviously you're going to have De Gea in between the nets. That speaks for itself. Quite rightly, I think Dalot probably will be out because of that gash. So I'll go Wan-Bissaka at right back. Then I will go. I want Lindelof to start beside Varane, but I think Harry Maguire will be brought back in. I think Maguire will be brought back in alongside Varane, even though I don't necessarily agree with that. Then I'm going to go, obviously, by process of elimination. I will go Alex Telles at left back. Then my midfield kind of four to kind of help combat Villa's kind of energy and intensity in midfield. I'm going to go Matic sitting kind of as the tip of the diamond as the holder. Then I'll have Donny to one side, Fred to the other, and then I'll have Bruno sitting at the top of the diamond as the attacking midfield player. Then I'm going to go with the front two of Cristiano Ronaldo and Mason Greenwood as the front two. Obviously, look, you have Greenwood who can get on the ball, he can link up play, and obviously Ronaldo is the finisher up there. Obviously, Mason's a great finisher too, but I think that front two, obviously you have Mason's legs who can get in behind, who can, obviously, when Mason Greenwood played as a striker this season, he played very well as a 9. So I think in this formation, he can play there again. And the last time he played in this formation was actually against Leipzig in the Champions League last season. He played quite well, playing as part of the two in the diamond. So I'd like to see Mason playing this role again, especially alongside Cristiano. Obviously, when you have Matic and Fred, obviously Donny kind of behind Bruno, it gives Bruno more license to get involved further up with them and make late runs into the box and score goals. He did also thrive in this formation last season when Ollie played it. About 4 or 5 times he played it, but Bruno did play well in that role. So I'd like to see him play that there. Lets him get closer to Ronaldo, closer to Greenwood. Doesn't give him as much defensive responsibility. And then obviously Fred also gets to play slightly higher in this formation. So does Donny, because obviously then little pockets we don't get exposed. So I'd like to see us go with that because we did have much more control in the game when it happened. And look, it'd be great to see Donny van de Beek get a start because all I see on social media is why doesn't he start? Why doesn't he start? I don't know. Ask every manager who's been training them in these last 2 years, every coach. Just ask them because I don't know. But we have a comment in here from Elias, and we may do this on the next podcast. But what's your best 11 since Ferguson? So you're talking about players post Sir Alex Ferguson. What we'll do with that, Elias, since you brought that comment up, on next week's Friday podcast, we will all come up with our best 11s post Sir Alex Ferguson. Now, we're maybe going to have to get one or different two rules because there will be players who will probably overlap from the Ferguson era who were there. So what I'm going to do with that is, obviously the only exception you can make is David De Gea because he's the only one who stayed through all that out that era. Obviously, people, the hack is you can probably use Rooney and Van Persie who was there under Moyes and Van Gaal. So we're going to have to come up with a specific rule set for this all-time 11 post Sir Alex, and we'll do that on next week's show. So that's a very good suggestion, very good question. But like we've been on an hour and 35 minutes, so I don't think we can actually come up with that 11 right now. In that regard, no. So he said not post Sir Alex. You're saying since Ferguson. So since Ferguson's era, again, that there is a lot of moving parts. So look, what we'll actually do next week then is we'll come up with two 11s next week. We'll come up with our best 11 post Sir Alex and our best 11 of Fergie's era and beyond. That's what we'll do. So we'll come up with them two on next week's show. And obviously for the post Sir Alex era, we'll go from 2013 to 2004 from that point onwards. And Elias then asks us to do from 1987 to 2021. Yes, look, we'll do both next week. We'll do both next week on next week's show. Obviously, Phil and Lee have been in amongst a lot of them players in that era, so it's going to be amputation. They'll have a very, very big advantage to me on that. But look, we'll see what we can get out of them 11s next week. But that wraps up our podcast this evening. But before we go, obviously, we're going to get around the table score predictions from the lads. So I'm going to come to you first, Lee. What is your score prediction for tomorrow's game? Oh, shit. You're muted 1 sec. There you go.
I'm going to go for a very optimistic 2-1 win.
Lee's going to go 2-1 win to Manchester United. Another bit of squeaky bum time for all Manchester United fans with another one goal lead. Phil, what's your score prediction for tomorrow evening's game?
I've got a bit of a bad feeling, to be honest, about
Don't say it.
Tomorrow. I've never done it. I've never said we'll get beat. Since we started the podcast, because I've always been optimistic. I'm not saying we're going to get beat today either, but I actually feel as though it's going to be a tough afternoon. So I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to say a 1-1. But I think potentially with the way Villa played the other day, and obviously the new signings that they've got, obviously Coutinho and people coming in here, it could be a sort of difficult afternoon for us. But yeah, I'm going to go for a draw, but I'm hoping the lads prove me wrong and we can get the win.
I'm a bit sceptical about that Buendia. I think he could be dangerous tomorrow too if he's playing. He looks like
honestly, on Monday, obviously when you watch live, he looked the real deal.
You can see that on TV. To be honest, you can see he had something a little bit special about him. You know what I mean? So
the way he receives the ball and sort of
I think he could skip past our midfield tomorrow if we're not careful.
Yeah, he's definitely the one to sort of watch out for. I'd say for sort of a defensive point of view, he's the one who can unlock the sort of the door for them.
Yep.
And you're talking about skipping past the field. This is exactly why I'm playing that formation, so we don't get caught in the overloads. It's exactly why I'm going with that. Hopefully, Ralph, if you're watching, this is a very good Manchester United podcast, and we like to embrace Manchester United fans. Ralph, go with that diamond tomorrow. We won't get caught in the overload, and Ronaldo and Greenwood will bang in the goals. But we've got a 2-1 from Neil, 1-1 from Phil, and it's going to come to a couple of comments just before I give my score prediction. Reece says 1-1, but I hope we win. Elias says 2-1 United. And Patrick says 3-1 United. That's very optimistic. I'm loving the positivity. And Elias says again 2-1 United until I watch the first 10 minutes. I can't. And he proceeds to say then 2-1 for now until I watch how United start. I can't decide now. You can't trust them. That's absolutely right. You absolutely can't trust them at the moment. But I'm actually going to be more optimistic than everybody. I'm going to go United to keep a clean sheet. This is just absolutely bonkers for me. I'm going to go United to keep a clean sheet, and it goes to win 2-0. And again, do you know what? Just for the absolute banter, Ronaldo's won a penalty past Emilio Martinez tomorrow. For all that celebrating he done in front of the Stretford End when Bruno missed that penalty, it's going to be poetic justice that Ronaldo scores one at Villa Park. Then Ronaldo goes up to all their fans and he does the seal. That's my prediction for this week that happens. And look,
I'll go for a little mad one. I think if Donny starts, I'll go for Donny scores if he starts.
I'm not looking at Twitter if that happens because people will be questioning my tweets and I question why he isn't playing. I guarantee everybody will be coming at me saying you're a Donny hater. Like I got personally attacked a couple of weeks ago. People said I have a personal agenda against Donny. I'm like, no. If it was personal, like I'm calling him a bad footballer. He's not a bad footballer. He's a brilliant technical footballer. I just said I question why he isn't playing under free coach.
I actually want him to start, even if he doesn't play well. And so we can all get it out of our heads that he doesn't deserve to be in the starting 11. But until he actually starts to run the games, no one knows if he is good enough. And I think that's where the confusion's coming.
Exactly. And that's where, look, for me, I'm just like, just let's play him. Let's see what he's like. And then, look, we can see whether them coaches were vindicated or whether the fans are vindicated. Or is it just the case that players are playing better in training? As we said, maybe that's just the case. Could be a simple case that, But look, let's see what happens in tomorrow's game. But guys, it's been a very good now and 41 minutes on this podcast. It's absolutely zoomed by. My voice is actually nearly gone at this point, but so that's why I have the good Irish water there. But thanks very much, everyone, for watching. It's been an absolute blast here today. Don't forget to smash a like in the video, hit that subscribe button. It's been an absolute great podcast. And look, there's a lot more coming on the Talk of Devils YouTube channel coming soon. Also, don't forget to check out our website, www.talkofdevils.co.uk. A lot of great articles on there, not just on latest Manchester United, but look, if you do like your history and like to read into archives, do check out the articles you have over there because we have a lot of great stuff over there. We have a lot of great writers here as well. So do check that out as well. And as always, do drop the lads a follow on their individual social medias as well. Phil has his there at Marshy mine's there at United_Keane 23. And I do believe Lee's Twitter handles like Lee Lozzie, is it
Lee Lozzie
84?
Yeah, that's it, mate. Yeah. Can I just say one thing, Keane, before we finish? And I've been meaning to say it all the way through the podcast. I've noticed the interactions today, Luke, massive on chat. I mean, I can't get it up on my screen at the same time as beyond the actual cast, but it looks like we've had a lot of interaction and a lot going on in the group chat, which I really appreciate to you guys. Thanks for the interaction and joining in. You know what I mean? It makes the podcast when the fans and of the show get involved. So I appreciate that too. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when a lot of you guys in the comments here, you've a lot of great insight, and it's great to see you guys not only engaging with us, but also engaging with yourselves and keeping the conversation going in the chat. It does obviously raise a lot of good points to us as well that we can do. Obviously, we have our own set topics come into a show, but then when you give us good comments like you do, guys, it gives us so much more and gives us more of a platform to talk about things. So thanks very much for your contribution, and do look. Keep supporting the channel because we do have a lot coming in these next couple of months. More ex-players content, more interviews, more podcasts like this. There's a lot more coming in these next couple of months. So do check that out. But guys, thanks very much for coming on this evening. Thanks to Phil, thanks to Lee. And look, enjoy the rest of your evenings. And hopefully, please, God, please give Manchester United 3 points tomorrow. Let's try to push on in this new year and get as much wins as possible and just a bit more positivity because I don't think I can do any more negativity. I don't think I can, guys. I'll start going grey in a minute. Do you know what I mean? It's going to happen. Look, until then, guys, thanks very much everyone watching. Don't forget to smash the like the video and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification just below the there on your right hand side. But until then, guys, thanks very much and we'll see you next Friday.